You sit down at the kitchen table, meaning to sort one or two papers, and before long, there is a small pile in front of you that somehow keeps growing. A letter from the DWP, a council tax bill, a tax notice from HMRC, an envelope about your national insurance record that looked important when it arrived, but not quite urgent enough to open that day, so it gets moved to one side, then to next week, then to the same pile of things you know you should deal with once you have the time, the energy, or the patience for one more form. That feeling is so common in retirement. Not panic, not crisis, just delay, a quiet sense that the paperwork can wait a little longer, and most of the time, with ordinary admin that may not matter very much. But with some pension age benefits, tax breaks, and pension records, the timing changes the value. Not because you have done anything wrong, not because anyone is trying to catch you out, simply because these systems often work on dates, windows, and deadlines that are easy to miss if nobody spells them out clearly. That is the part many people only discover too late. They assume that if they qualify for help, the money will still be there whenever they finally get around to claiming it. That sounds reasonable, it sounds fair, but in several important cases, that is not how it works. Sometimes the claim only starts from the day you act. Sometimes you can ask the backdating, but only for a limited period. Sometimes an older tax year drops away and takes the chance to claim with it. And sometimes a record can still be corrected, but proving it gets harder as old payslips, P60s, and paperwork disappear. So the real issue is not just whether support exists, it is whether waiting quietly reduces what you can keep. That is why these 4 areas matter more than they may first appear. They are not just bits of routine paperwork. Each one has its own clock running in the background. The first clock is the most immediate, and it catches many older people by surprise. That is attendance allowance. If daily life has become harder because of a physical or mental health condition, and help or supervision is needed, even informally at home, delaying that claim can mean losing money week by week, not because the claim is refused, but because the start date usually depends on when the claim is made or when the claim pack is requested. The second clock sits inside the council tax system. Some pension-age households can get council tax reduction, sometimes partial, sometimes more substantial, especially on a lower income or alongside guarantee pension credit. But backdating is not open-ended. Older months can slip out of reach if the request is left too long. The third clock runs on the tax calendar. Marriage allowance can help some married couples and civil partners where one person has spare personal allowance and the other pays basic rate tax. But every April, the oldest tax year that could have been claimed usually drops out of the backdating window. That means waiting can turn a valid tax saving into one that is simply gone, and the fourth clock is quieter, but no less important. A national insurance record can contain gaps or mistakes that affect state pension amounts. Some can be corrected, but the longer time passes, the harder it can be to find the evidence that proves what happened. This is the key point to hold on to from the start. Eligibility is only half the story. Timing often decides how much money actually ends up in your pocket, and that changes the order these jobs need to be tackled. They may all look like general paperwork spread across the same kitchen table, but they are not equally urgent. One may be costing money now, another may be losing older months, another is tied to April, another depends on records you may still be able to find today, but not so easily a year from now. So rather than treating them as one large, tiring pile, it helps to separate them into the right order. And the first one to move to the top is not the council bill or the tax letter. It is the benefit many people delay because they do not realize the date itself can cost them money. If getting washed, dressed, to the toilet, or safely through the night has become more difficult, attendance allowance is the first thing to bring forward. This is a tax-free DWP benefit for people over state pension age whose physical or mental health condition means they need help with personal care or need someone to keep an eye on them for safety. That can include things people often brush aside: needing help with buttons or socks, needing prompting to take medication, feeling unsteady and at risk of falling, getting confused, needing someone nearby because nights have become unsettled or unsafe. A lot of people assume it only counts if a carer is coming in every day or if they are already receiving formal support. That is not the test. Many older people qualify while still living at home and managing as best they can with help from a husband, wife, daughter, son, neighbor, or simply through a lot of effort and adaptation. And this is where the timing matters most. Attendance allowance is not means tested, so savings and income do not usually rule it out. But payment usually starts from the date the claim is made, or from the date the claim pack is requested if it is returned in time. In plain terms, if someone already needs that help and waits another month, that may be a month of money they cannot usually get back later. That is why this one comes first. Delay here can cost week by week. Once that is on your radar, the next area is the council tax bill. Many pension-age households simply keep paying what the bill says, month after month, assuming that is the fixed amount and nothing more can be done. But some older households may qualify for council tax reduction, especially if they are on a low income, and especially if they receive guarantee pension credit. This catches people by surprise because they may own their home outright and still think help with council tax is only for younger households or renters. It is not. Council tax reduction is run locally, so the exact rules and process vary by council, but the broad point is the same. Some pensioners can get a partial reduction, and some can get much more than they expect. The timing issue here is slightly different from attendance allowance. With council tax support, pension age claimants may be able to ask for backdating, but only within a limited window. So if entitlement was there a while ago, but no claim was made, there may still be a chance to recover some of those older months, but not indefinitely. Leave it too long, and the earliest months begin to fall away. Money that might have been recoverable becomes money that has simply gone. Then there is marriage allowance, which sounds technical, but the idea is straightforward. If one spouse or civil partner does not use all of their personal allowance and the other is a basic rate taxpayer, part of that allowance may be transferred across. That can reduce the couple's tax bill. This often matters after retirement or part-time work changes the balance between two incomes. One partner may have little or no taxable income. The other may still be paying tax, yet the couple may not have revisited their tax position for years. Here, the clock is the tax year. Claims can usually be backdated for earlier eligible years, but the oldest year in that backdating window tends to drop out each April, so waiting is not harmless. It can mean losing a whole year's tax saving that could have been claimed if action had been taken sooner. And finally, there is the national insurance record. This is less about a fast deadline and more about something becoming harder to fix over time. Missing or incorrect qualifying years can affect state pension amounts. Sometimes the online record shows a gap that does not match real life. Perhaps there was work, self-employment, caring, or credits that should have counted. The longer that sits untouched, the harder it can be to prove. Old P60s go missing. Payslips get thrown out, bank records become harder to track down, memories fade. So the smart order is to check the record, gather any evidence you still have, question anything that looks wrong, and speak to the future pension center before paying voluntary contributions. A gap is not always one worth buying. So by now, the pile on the table starts to look different, not like 4 equal jobs, but 4 different clocks. One where the claim date matters now, one where backdating can shrink, one where April can close a door, and one where proof gets harder with age. That is why the next helpful step is not to do everything at once. It is to put these in the right order. If care or supervision needs are already part of daily life, even if they have crept up gradually, attendance allowance goes to the top of the list, not because it is the biggest form, not because it is the most complicated, simply because the claim date matters straight away. When someone is already needing help, waiting can mean losing money that usually cannot be recreated later just by saying the need was there all along. After that, the council tax bill deserves a proper look, especially if money feels tighter than it used to, or if guarantee pension credit is already in payment. A lot of people treat the bill as fixed because it arrives looking final, but for some pension-age households, it is not final at all. There may be support there now, and there may be a chance to ask about earlier months as well. The important part is not to assume the window will stay open indefinitely. Then comes marriage allowance. This is one of those things couples often mean to check and then never quite circle back to. Life changes, one income drops, one partner retires. the tax position shifts quietly in the background, and before long, another April arrives and an older tax year disappears from reach. That is what makes this worth checking sooner rather than later, not because something dramatic happens overnight, but because calendars move on whether anyone looks at them or not. And then there is the National Insurance Record. This one asks for a slightly different mindset, less rush, more care, but still not delay. If there are gaps or years that do not look right, it helps to check while there is still a fair chance of finding the paperwork that tells the story properly. Old payslips, P60s, letters, bank statements, even notes about where you worked and when, can all become harder to gather as time passes. So this is not about panicking and paying to fill every gap. It is about checking first, questioning anything that seems off, and getting proper guidance before spending money on voluntary contributions. Sometimes the most useful change is very small. Open the envelope, write down the date, put the papers into 4 simple groups: DWP, Council Tax, HMRC, National Insurance. That alone turns a vague burden into something you can actually work through. It also helps to notice the moments when these checks matter most. If health needs have changed recently, that is a sign to look at attendance allowance now, not later. If the council tax bill feels heavy on pension income, that is a reason to ask the council what support may apply. If one partner pays tax and the other does not, that is the moment to look at marriage allowance before another tax year rolls by. And if the national insurance record shows gaps that do not fit your memory, that is worth checking while the trail is still warmer. For anything uncertain, the sensible approach is not guessing. It is asking the right place. The Council for Council Tax Support, HMRC for marriage allowance and tax questions, DWP for attendance allowance, the Future Pension Center before making decisions about paying for missing national insurance years. Calm, practical checking is often what protects the money. What looked at first like one dreary pile of paperwork is really 4 different opportunities to stop money slipping away for different reasons. One is about protecting a claim date, one is about not letting backdating months disappear, one is tied to the tax year clock, one is about preserving the chance to prove an older record. And that is the bigger lesson here. Later life finances are not only about finding new help. Very often, they are about recognizing what may already be available and acting in time to keep it. So if that kitchen table is covered in envelopes, there is a useful order to start with. First, the help linked to care and supervision needs, then the council tax bill, then the tax allowance for couples, then the pension record. One paper at a time, that pile stops being admin you keep putting off. It becomes something much more valuable, money protected before the clock quietly runs out.